She froze mid-shift when her phone buzzed. One word in Dutch slipped out, and the entire table went silent. The Mafia Boss at table 9 lifted his eyes, calm, calculating. Hours later, his men were outside her apartment, and his order echoed like a sentence: "Watch her closely." But what did he really find in her past that made her too dangerous to ignore? We are about to dig deep, but before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. We got another amazing story for you tomorrow. If you had asked Gisela Corrales 6 weeks ago, she would have told you that the smell of truffle oil and wealth was the furthest thing from danger. That the real threat was 15 years and an entire ocean away, somewhere near the port of Rotterdam. She was wrong, as she rushed through the doors of Bellissimo. Adjusting the fake Denver smile, she had no idea that her meticulously constructed life was about to be dismantled by the gray eyes of a man waiting at table 9. The bitter February wind off the Hudson had chased her all the way to the restaurant's opulent entrance. Inside, crystal chandeliers glowed over polished mahogany tables, and the pervasive scent of truffle oil drifted through the air, a scent of untouchable, inherited money. To most diners, she was just another pretty blonde waitress trying to make rent in a brutal city. No one knew she'd crossed an ocean to disappear, trading the grim reality of Europe for the dizzying anonymity of New York. She tied her apron, forcing calm into her shaking hands. Her fake resume claimed she was born in Denver. Her real birth certificate, tucked away in a storage locker under a different name, said she was Dutch. Have you ever felt completely out of place somewhere, like you were living a double life? Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to keep a massive secret just to survive. Gisela, Marco, the floor manager, hissed the moment she stepped through the kitchen doors. His eyes were wide with a frantic energy she had never witnessed in the usually composed man. She fumbled with the knot of her apron, suddenly feeling the weight of the 6 weeks she'd spent building her facade. "Table 9, Marco clipped, shoving a clean silver tray into her hands. "You're taking it tonight. And for God's sake, Corrales, don't screw this up." Her pulse jumped at the intensity in his voice. "Why? What's special about table 9? Marco's expression turned wary, as if speaking the name aloud might conjure the man himself. "William Skinner's there tonight." The name meant something even to newcomers. Skinner Enterprises was supposedly an import business, the primary function of which was moving goods through the East Coast docks. But everyone whispered the same thing. William Skinner ran the docks the way the feds never could. He was efficiently married to lethal consequences. Gisela's throat went dry. The man she had gone to great lengths to avoid, the type of power broker tied intrinsically to the world her father had fled, was now sitting 20 feet away, waiting for her to serve him. She took a steadying breath. Professional, invisible, Denver. That was the mantra. Marco is clearly terrified of Skinner. Do you think Skinner already knows Gisela is hiding something, or is this just bad luck? Drop your theories below. If this tension has you hooked, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. We're only getting started on this journey into the underworld. Gisela moved through the dining room, spine straight, masking her internal tremor. She approached the secluded table where the atmosphere seemed to drop 10 degrees. William Skinner sat surrounded by silent men in tailored dark suits. He looked mid-40s, sharp-jawed, handsome in a cold, sculpted way, like marble that had learned to breathe. The suit he wore looked less like clothing and more like a uniform designed for silent warfare. He didn't glance up until she spoke. but she felt the presence of his power like a physical weight. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Bellissimo." He raised his eyes. They were gray as gunmetal, startlingly intelligent, and they pinned her instantly. "You're new." The interrogation was immediate, subtle, and unnerving. "Yes, sir. 6 weeks." A flicker of a smile touched his mouth, gone almost before it registered. "And already trusted with my table. Marco must believe you're exceptional." Her mind screamed a warning. Exceptional meant noticed. Noticed meant scrutinized. And scrutiny was fatal. She forced herself to nod, took his order, bourbon, neat, and turned away. But even with her back turned, she felt his gaze follow her, precise and heavy, already cataloging the first of her many lies. This was the exact moment she realized her attempt at invisibility had failed. The running was over, but the chase had just begun. The dinner service thickened around her. Gisela moved with mechanical grace, stacking trays and refilling water glasses, trying to scrub the cold, analyzing the feel of William Skinner's scrutiny off her back. She kept her head down, reminding herself that he was a businessman and she was an anonymous help. He had ordered his bourbon, he had received his bourbon, and now she just needed to make it through the shift. Her phone vibrated violently in her apron pocket. She never answered while working. It was rule number 1 of keeping her cover. But the unknown number held a pattern she recognized. Her sister's old sequence, rerouted through a half-dozen VoIP tunnels. It was Rotterdam, and it was urgent. Gisela slipped toward the service hallway, near the frosted glass of the private room, praying she was out of earshot of the bustling kitchen. She pressed the phone to her ear, keeping her voice tight and low. "Hello?" Her sister's voice, raw with panic, erupted in a rapid, frantic torrent of Dutch. Men asking questions about their father, police inquiries, the missing money, still haunting them 15 years later. "I can't talk now. I'll call after my shift," Gisela whispered back, the language flowing automatically, a desperate sound ripped straight from her childhood. She hung up, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, leaving the crisis suspended mid-air across the Atlantic. She turned back toward the main dining room light, swallowing the sudden taste of bile. William Skinner was there. He hadn't been standing when she entered the hallway. He wasn't aggressive. He was simply present, leaning casually against the doorframe, his unbuttoned collar revealing a slice of tanned throat. His gray eyes held a flicker of cold interest. The phone call just linked Gisela's father, the police, and Rotterdam right in front of the Mafia Boss. What do you think Skinner is going to do now that he knows she lied? Predict his next move in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to track Gisela's every step into this dangerous new world. "Interesting language," he said, his voice quiet but dangerous. It didn't demand an answer. It simply observed a fact. "Dutch?" Gisela's mind raced, scrambling for the Denver native persona. She forced a polite, professional smile, the final vestige of her disguise. "Yes, sir," she managed. "My mother's side." He tilted his head slightly, studying her face as if cataloging every muscle twitch that indicated a lie. "And your father?" "Spanish." Skinner took a slow step closer, his presence expanding, filling the small space. "Spain and the Netherlands," he murmured, the combination sounding like an impossible distance. "Long way from home, for a girl named Gisela Corrales." She forced a polite nod and hurried past him, back toward the fluorescent safety of the kitchen. But the ease with which he had challenged her, the quiet certainty in his eyes, confirmed the terror. The weight of his stare was no longer merely aesthetic. It was calculated and knowing. She hadn't just made a mistake. She had confirmed his suspicion, and in a few short, desperate phrases, she had handed William Skinner the key to her entire vanished life. Midnight. The high-class drama of Bellissimo had evaporated, leaving behind the stark reality of polished floors and empty tables. Gisela was stacking the final dessert glasses, the clinking sound unnaturally loud. Her skin still crawled with the memory of Skinner's calculating stare. She was counting the seconds until she could flee when Marco reappeared, his face sheet-white. "Mr. Skinner wants to see you in the private room." Her stomach twisted into a knot of cold dread. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered, the question a desperate plea for a normal mistake. "Just go," Marco insisted, abandoning her instantly. She stood for a moment, staring at the frosted glass door at the back of the dining room. This was the end of the line. She knocked softly, the sound swallowed by the thick wood. "Come in." Gisela pushed the door open. William Skinner stood by the tall window overlooking the city, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up to the forearms, revealing tightly corded muscle. He didn't turn as he spoke. "Sit down, Miss Corrales." The use of her real last name, the name she'd meticulously scrubbed from existence, froze the blood in her vein. "I think you have me confused with someone else," she managed, her voice barely a tremor. He turned then, eyes narrowing to slits of lethal gray. "You really want to keep pretending, Gisela? You changed the spelling of your first name. You bought a social security number from a junkie in Queens. Clever, but not clever enough." He opened a slim black folder on the table. Her entire fake life stared back at her. Applications, fake addresses, a blurry copy of the forged ID. The reveal. Skinner knows everything. If you were Gisela right now, would you try to lie your way out, or immediately try to run? Comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the fallout. "You answered your phone in Dutch," he said simply, the explanation utterly devastating. "That was your mistake." Her knees went weak. Skinner didn't offer a drink this time. He just pointed to the table. "Your father worked at the port of Rotterdam 15 years ago. He handled freight for one of my European subsidiaries. Then he vanished, with 2 million euros in misdirected cargo fees." The old family ghost was finally tangible. "I don't know anything about that," she said, her voice thin. "Maybe, maybe not." He took a sip of his bourbon. "If your father's alive, I want to know where. If he's dead, I want proof. I haven't spoken to him since I was 16. Then find out." She blinked, confused. "Why me?" A faint, predatory smile touched his mouth. "Because people talk to daughters when they won't talk to businessmen. And because I don't like coincidences." He stepped closer, his presence filling the air with heavy, dangerous power. "You'll keep working here. You'll act normal. My men will make sure you stay safe." He started for the door, then stopped. His voice dropped to a whisper colder than the February wind outside. "Watch her closely." The 2 hulking men stationed in the hallway nodded once. Gisela was no longer a waitress. She was leverage. She barely made it back to her Hell's Kitchen apartment. She sat on the edge of her bed, heart hammering, staring at the cracked window. She'd run from Europe to escape her father's sins, but now the Mafia Boss knew her name, her history, and her secret language. When dawn bled across the skyline, she packed a small bag. She had to disappear again. But when she opened her door, A black Lincoln Navigator idled silently at the curb. A man in a dark coat leaned against it, speaking softly into an earpiece. He looked up the instant she appeared. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered on instinct. A low, calm voice. Don't run, Gisela. We need to talk. W.S. She froze. The running was over. She was trapped. The command still echoed in her ears. Don't run, Gisela. We need to talk. Gisela went to work. Not because she had a choice, but because William Skinner had engineered the complete obliteration of all her other options. Running meant exposure. Cooperating meant survival, however tainted. She entered Bellissimo, and the difference was immediate. The staff treated her normally, but two new faces haunted the perimeter. One, a massive, silent man with a faint scar above his eyebrow, stood near the coat check. The other, a leaner man with the precise movements of a trained operative, occupied the corner table where the reservation book used to sit. This must be the primary watcher, the man who would ensure she stayed safe. Jax, she mentally supplied the placeholder name from the outline, a cold shiver running down her spine. Gisela played the role of the diligent, if slightly strained, waitress. She avoided table 9, but she felt Jax's presence like a beam of light tracking her movements. Mid-afternoon, her work phone, the cheap, temporary device she used for calls, vibrated with a text message. It wasn't from her sister. W.S. Your sister's number. Use this line. Call, don't text. Start the conversation where you left off. Do not mention me. Tell me everything when you close. The message was a casual violation of her privacy, a stark reminder that every line of her life was now monitored. Skinner wasn't just leveraging her, he was actively testing her obedience and resourcefulness. He was outsourcing the danger he couldn't personally touch across the ocean. If you were Gisela, would you risk telling your sister the truth about Skinner, or keep her in the dark to protect her? What would you do? Let me know in the comments. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Mafia world, hit that like button. Gisela slipped out the back service entrance during her break, the February air biting at her cheeks. She dialed the number, switching instantly to Dutch, the sound of her native tongue feeling like both a comfort and a deep vulnerability. Her sister, Marika, was still frantic, detailing how investigators, private, not police, had been asking neighbors about their father's business connections in Rotterdam 15 years ago. Gisela had to tread a fine, terrifying line, pushing for details without revealing the armed threat currently overseeing her life in Manhattan. Do they ever mention who these people work for? Gisela asked in Dutch, leaning into the urgency. Was it just about the money? Marika hesitated. There was one name, a name Dad used to curse when he drank. He said they forced his hand. It wasn't Skinner's name, it was Vanderhorst, a heavy freight company. He said they were the real thieves. The name hit Gisela with the force of a blow. It contradicted the clean narrative Skinner had provided, that her father simply stole from him. She hated control. Yet the potential to find information that might protect her family or save her own life, was a powerful motivator. She ended the call, the secret detail burning in her mind. Back inside, she saw Jax nodding casually at the waiter, but his gaze snapped to her the instant she entered the room. That night, after the last patrons left, Gisela sent the text to Skinner's burner phone. Not just money. Vanderhorst. Rotterdam Freight, rival connection. The response was immediate. W.S. Good girl. You are worth keeping. A chill that had nothing to do with the outside air ran through her. She was valuable, which meant she was utterly, completely trapped. The message, delivered by William Skinner after her cryptic update, felt less like praise and more like a brand pressed into her skin. She had proved her value, confirming her indispensability, and thus her total captivity. The next day, she wasn't serving bourbon. She was summoned. A text arrived at 10 a.m. ordering her to a location far from Bellissimo, a nondescript, sleek Manhattan tower near East 52nd Street. Jax, the cold-eyed watcher, drove her there, parking discreetly before ushering her into a minimalist penthouse office. The setting was sterile, almost clinical, contrasting sharply with the gilded warmth of the restaurant. Skinner sat behind a vast, empty mahogany desk. He had exchanged his tailored dinner suit for an equally impeccable, though less relaxed, corporate ensemble. The formality only highlighted the sheer danger of the situation. Skinner didn't waste time. He slid a heavy folder across the polished desk. Inside were yellowed shipping manifests and densely coded ledger entries, all handwritten in precise, flowing script. The language was Dutch, interlaced with archaic maritime code. Gisela's breath hitched. This wasn't a paper trail. This was the raw, unedited history of her father's last days in Rotterdam. The 2 million euros was bait, Corrales, Skinner stated, leaning forward, his gray eyes locking onto hers. I'm done with the money. I need to know what was on the cargo manifest. What was valuable enough to risk war? Skinner just revealed the real stakes are massive cargo, not just cash. What do you think her father was forced to smuggle? Stolen art? Weapons? Drop your predictions in the comments. If you're loving the escalating conspiracy, like and share this chapter. Gisela finally found the courage to push back. And if I find it, what happens? Does my father get a bullet or a reprieve? Skinner looked utterly bored by her emotional plea. The 2 million was an accounting loss. The payload, that's what the feds in Europe are actually looking for. That cargo could destabilize half the European market. Find me the payload, and we can discuss your freedom. She was translating for the man who was hunting her family, yet she desperately needed the answers the documents contained. She began her work, tracing the dense Dutch script. She felt less like a waitress and more like a codebreaker, her native tongue betraying secrets across decades. Her fingers halted on one specific entry, disguised under a series of numerical abbreviations typically used for agricultural imports. She whispered the translation, the words translating not only the script, but her family's true peril. A hidden shipment marked VDH Transit Forced Clearance, Vanderhorst. Her father hadn't stolen from Skinner. He had been forced to facilitate a theft for a rival European syndicate, using the 2 million euros as a convenient diversion. Skinner had been chasing the wrong thief, but he had found the right key. Her. She looked up, reporting the finding, confirming the connection. Skinner's lips curled into a slow, satisfied smile. Gisela realized her position was far more precarious than she ever imagined. She wasn't just indebted to the New York Mafia. She was now a pawn caught directly between Skinner's ruthlessly powerful empire and the terrifying European operation of Vanderhorst. There was no escape, only 2 sets of teeth waiting to devour her. The discovery of the Vanderhorst name solidified Gisela's role. She was no longer just a translator. She was a mole. Skinner needed her European connection, and the only way to exploit it was through a controlled, perilous meeting. He goes by Marcus, Skinner explained 2 days later, reviewing a dossier in the clinical office. A minor courier, a runner for Vanderhorst. He's in town briefly to move some liquid assets. You're going to meet him, Gisela. You are going to convince him you're his leverage, the daughter of the man who held Vanderhorst's secrets, and you're here to claim your family's inheritance. The meeting was set for a discreet coffee shop in Chelsea. Gisela was wearing an expensive neutral outfit provided by Skinner, a chilling reminder that her entire persona was now his property. Jax sat across the room, blendable but deadly, observing every movement. Gisela approached Marcus, speaking flawless Rotterdam Dutch. "My father sent me. You know what he took. I need my share." Marcus, nervous and sweaty, visibly flinched at the sound of her accent. Gisela pressed him, using the intimate knowledge she'd gleaned from the manifests, talking about specific docs, old contacts, the exact date of the theft, to establish undeniable credibility. She played the part of the greedy, wronged daughter perfectly. Gisela is putting on an amazing performance as a mafia heiress. Do you think she can fool Marcus, or will her fear give her away? Vote in the comments. Fool him, get caught. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the deadly ambush coming next. The interrogation turned aggressive when Marcus grew desperate. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her expensive jacket. "Your father left me hanging. Where is he? I need proof you're legitimate." The instant Marcus touched her, Jax moved. Not violently, not obviously, but with the subtle efficiency of a predator. Jax slid past the counter, his hip making forceful, casual contact with Marcus's kidney. Marcus gasped, releasing Gisela immediately, his face graying with pain and sudden, silent understanding. He didn't look at Jax. He looked at Gisela with terrified respect. Gisela, reeling but stabilized, used the moment of fear to press her final demand. He left a failsafe, a place to keep his side clean. "Where is the vault?" Marcus crumbled. He whispered the address, a temporary storage unit in a remote New Jersey industrial park, secured years ago. Later that evening, back in the silence of Skinner's office, Gisela was still shaking from the physical confrontation. Skinner dismissed Jax and watched her from across the room. "Effective," Skinner analyzed, his voice low, a note of dark approval she didn't want to hear. "You handle pressure well, Corrales. Better than I expected from a waitress." Gisela rubbed the faint bruise on her arm. "I was fighting for my family, not for your ledger." "The distinction is meaningless now," he countered, his eyes holding hers across the vast desk. He rose, walking around the barrier, stopping uncomfortably close. "You're stressed. Don't break yet." He reached out, his finger lightly tracing the mark Marcus had left on her arm. The touch, unexpected and possessive, sent a confusing spark of electricity through her. It was control masquerading as a concern. "We go tonight," Skinner decided abruptly, pulling his hand away as if realizing his lapse. "That storage unit is the first solid lead. You secured it, Corrales. Now you help me open it." She hated the fact that she needed his protection, and hated even more the terrifying, unwanted dependency that was starting to take root. She knew then that she wasn't just his asset. She was becoming his possession. The decision hung in the air like a death sentence. Gisela's arm still throbbed from Marcus's grip, but Skinner's touch, brief, possessive, had left a deeper mark. "We go tonight," he repeated, his voice a low command that brooked no argument. Jax nodded from the doorway, already pulling on a black tactical jacket. The drive to New Jersey was a silent blur of rain-slicked highways and industrial shadows. Gisela sat in the back of the Lincoln Navigator, sandwiched between Skinner's calculating presence and Jax's stoic vigilance. The desolate storage facility loomed under sodium lights, a graveyard of rusting metal units fenced by chain link and razor wire. No security cameras blinked. Skinner's contacts had ensured that. Jax picked the lock on Unit 47 with practiced ease, the door groaning open to reveal dusty shelves and forgotten crates. Gisela's flashlight beam cut through the gloom, landing on a single locked metal box bolted to the rear wall. No cash, no obvious treasures, just this relic. Skinner's eyes narrowed. "Open it." The lock was old, a combination dial yellowed with age. Gisela's mind raced back to childhood games in Rotterdam, her father hiding sweets in puzzle boxes. "The date," she whispered, twisting the dial to her mother's birthday. 05/12/68. A soft click echoed. Inside, no stacks of euros greeted them. Instead, a thick, encrypted ledger bound in weathered leather. Gisela flipped through pages of dense Dutch script and coded entries, client lists, smuggling routes from Rotterdam to Marseille, contacts spanning half of Europe's black market. Her father hadn't stolen money. He'd lifted the blueprint of the Vanderhorst syndicate's entire empire. Skinner's face lit with predatory hunger. This is priceless. Roots, names, enough to dismantle them. He snatched the ledger, tucking it into his jacket. Gisela's father stole a mafia empire's secrets. What do you think Skinner will do with this ledger? Blackmail or destroy? Predict in the comments. If you're on the edge of your seat, smash that like and subscribe for the explosive climax. But as they turned to leave, headlights pierced the rain outside, doors slammed, footsteps crunched gravel, 4 men, armed, faces masked. Marcus had talked. "Ambush!" Jax snarled, drawing his pistol. The gunfight erupted in brutal chaos. Bullets shattered crates, splintering wood and pinging off metal. Jax fired twice, dropping one assailant, but a round grazed his shoulder, blood blooming dark. Skinner shoved Gisela behind a shelf, his own gun barking in controlled bursts. Gisela's world narrowed to instinct. A fallen crowbar lay at her feet. As one attacker flanked Skinner, she swung wildly, connecting with his knee. He howled, crumpling. Skinner finished him with a precise shot. The air reeked of gunpowder and fear. Gisela, trembling, had crossed the final line, from pawn to participant in the violence. The chaos swallowed everything. Bullets ricocheted off metal shelves, splintering crates into jagged confetti. Gisela crouched behind a toppled pallet, ears ringing from the gunfire, the crowbar slick in her bloodied hands. Jax slumped against the wall, clutching his shoulder where crimson seeped through his fingers. "Get out!" he growled at Skinner, firing blindly into the shadows where 2 remaining assailants lurked. Skinner knelt low, ledger pressed to his chest like a shield, his gun steady despite the storm. His gray eyes flicked to Gisela. Cold, assessing. The exit was 20 feet away, a gaping maw of darkness, tempting her to bolt into the rain-slashed night. She could run, vanish again, leave this mafia nightmare behind. But the ledger's secrets burned in her mind, proof of her father's survival, tangled in Vanderhorst's web. And Skinner? He held the key to unlocking it all, or destroying her. The attackers advanced, one flanking left towards Skinner. Gisela's research flashed back, hours poring over online maps of the industrial park, memorizing emergency exits and weak points for her inheritance ploy. The building had a fire suppression system, pipes snaking overhead. Choice made. Loyalty or survival? She scrambled to a rusted valve on the wall, twisting it hard. A hiss erupted as water sprayed from ceiling sprinklers, drenching the unit in a blinding cascade. The assailants cursed. slipping on the slick floor, their shots going wild. Skinner seized the moment. 2 precise bursts from his pistol dropped them both, bodies thudding wetly. Silence fell, broken only by the patter of water and Jax's labored breaths. Gisela stood trembling, soaked and spattered with grime and blood, not all hers. Skinner rose, holstering his weapon, his gaze locking on her. Bloodied, terrified, but effective. A faint, approving nod crossed his face, the first crack in his marble facade. "You could have run," he said, voice low amid the dripping ruin. "I needed answers," she whispered, wiping water from her eyes. He pulled the ledger from his jacket, flipping to a dog-eared page. "Recent entries, coded but dated last month. Your father didn't abandon you. He left this to protect himself. He's alive, Gisela, hiding, but breathing." Her heart clenched. Proof, not a ghost, but a man evading empires. She reached for the book, fingers brushing a loose note tucked in the binding. A final message, scrawled in her father's familiar hand. "Gisela, if you find this, run from Skinner. He orchestrated the accident that killed your uncle, collateral in a deal gone south. Don't trust him." The betrayal hit like a gut punch. Skinner, responsible for the unrelated tragedy that shattered her family years before the theft? Her loyalty fractured, complicating everything. She slipped the note into her pocket unseen, face neutral. Skinner closed the ledger. "We're done here. Jax, can you move?" The watcher grunted affirmation, staggering up. They slipped into the night, the Lincoln waiting like a faithful beast. Back in the city, the air in Skinner's penthouse was thick with unspoken violence, the metallic tang of blood, the ghost of gunpowder on their clothes. Gisela stared out at the glittering skyline, bandaged and bruised. She had proof her father lived, a secret that could unravel Skinner. But the night's blood bound her to him. She was no longer leverage. She was complicit, entangled in his web. Skinner poured bourbon, handing her a glass. "You chose well." Did Gisela make the right choice by saving Skinner, or should she have run? And that twist about her uncle. What's her next move? Spill your theories in the comments. If this climax has you reeling, like, share, and subscribe for the final resolution. A few days later, Gisela sat in William Skinner's penthouse office. The blood and dust of the New Jersey ambush had been washed away, and Jax had been patched up, but the experience had left a permanent, ragged edge on her nerves. She felt brittle, exhausted, but strangely, profoundly, awake. Skinner sat across the desk, the ledger, the blueprint of the Vanderhorst Empire, open between them. The stakes had fundamentally changed. "The 2 million euros?" Gisela asked, her voice raspy from disuse. Skinner barely glanced up. "Irrelevant. A rounding error. This ledger," he tapped the encrypted pages, "is priceless. It buys me Europe. It stops a future war on my docks before it starts. The debt is settled, Corrales." Gisela felt a flicker of disbelief. Freedom? "However," Skinner continued, his voice dropping, the sound of a closing trap, "the familial debt is replaced by a professional one. You saw my operation. You survived an attempt on my life. You understand the language of the enemy. And crucially, you have the connection." He leaned back, his gaze intensely clinical. "You know too much to be allowed to disappear. You are the only person who can reliably interpret and act upon this intelligence without alerting Vanderhorst. The debt is paid, but the nightmare continues. Skinner's offer isn't an offer at all. It's total control. If you were Gisela, would you take the protection or risk everything for true freedom? Discuss in the comments. If you're captivated by this toxic power play, please like and share this finale. He laid out the ultimatum, casual as ordering lunch. Your father is alive. You know that now. You can try to run, and I will ensure that both the feds, for the 2 million euros, and the Vanderhorst syndicate, for the ledger, know exactly where he is. I will not protect you, and I certainly won't protect your sister. Gisela's breath caught. He had found the ultimate lever. Or, Skinner continued, a dangerous softness entering his voice, you stay under my protection. You will serve as my European liaison, using your Dutch identity, your language, and your new understanding of this world. You are an asset, Gisela, and assets are never exposed. She closed her eyes, swallowing the bitter pill of reality. She was trading one prison for another, but this new one promised power, knowledge, and most importantly, the ability to shield Marika. I agree, she said, her voice stronger than before. But if I'm your asset, my sister is off limits. You guarantee her safety. She is untouchable. Skinner offered a nod of assent. A chilling contract sealed without ink. Done. Hours later, Gisela was no longer in the cramped Hell's Kitchen apartment. She was in a small, elegant residence near Skinner's center of operations, overlooking the glowing, sprawling city. The view was beautiful, but she felt the invisible bars of her gilded cage. She looked out over the skyline, no longer fleeing, but waiting. She received a new device, an encrypted, specialized phone, replacing her old, compromised burner. The first text arrived instantly. WS. Your first assignment involves coordinating a shipment arrival in Antwerp. Welcome to the business, Corrales. She hadn't run to escape her father's sins. She had just been drafted into them.